Build Your Business listeners. This is Matt Reynolds, your host for the podcast, and you are listening to what we are calling the legacy episodes. And really, these are the pre-episodes that really led to this podcast, the Build Your Business podcast. This is really my life's work and my brother's life's work in building your business. And so they were originally published in the Barbell Logic podcast as part of the Principles or Coaching Success series, but really touch on similar topics to the Build Your Business podcast: how to improve your productivity, how to set and accomplish your goals, deprioritize urgent tasks, to focus on what is most important to you, and most importantly, to become a better person and leader and business owner overall. I'm proud to bring you these podcasts. Again, many years of life's work, several years of podcasts, and several decades of business ownership. Hope you enjoy them and learn from them. You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to the Barbell Logic podcast, another coaching success series. I am your host, Matt Reynolds, and have a special episode today. First off, happy Thanksgiving weekend. Hope everything is going well this weekend. Hope you're enjoying time with family and friends and loved ones. We're going to repost a podcast that I did this week that got released on Zach Evan-Esh's podcast called Strong Life. I would encourage you to check it out if you don't know who Zach Evan-Esh is. He was actually one of the guys that I really learned from many years ago, probably 20 years ago, was writing for Elite FTS, when the internet was much smaller back then. He trained a lot of athletes at the time. Of course, I was head strength coach at a high school. So I learned a lot from that guy. Over the years, we've developed a great relationship. He'll talk about this some on the podcast. I've done some business mentorship with him. Too busy to do that stuff anymore. So really, one of the things that I've done with this podcast and with a lot of the information that we're putting out is the kind of stuff I would do in business mentorship. We're just giving away for free via content here on the podcast and written word and whatnot. And of course, with the Coaching Rediscovered course that has come out this week. So if you haven't checked that out, please check that out. I'm just trying to give as much free content away as I can. Again, as for those of you that know this and have followed the podcast for years, there was a ton of stuff in my head that was just taking up bandwidth about strength coaching and strength training. And that's why Scott and I started the podcast, the Barbell Logic podcast. And the same has sort of occurred in the business world now. And especially applying the business knowledge that I've been blessed to learn. And of course, I'm in a never-ending pursuit of knowledge. I don't have it all figured out, but things have gone very well, as you all know, with the business and the government contracts and the Series A raise and all those sorts of things. And so for us, this is just a great way for me, first off, to just express those things, to give back. I wish I had had someone to teach me all of those things. And by the way, while I'm at it, a big shout out to my little brother and my cousin, to Chris, who's been on the podcast many times before, and my cousin Phil. They started a business probably 10 years before I started business. And so I have actually learned a ton from those guys. I have had some of that. Scott was a tremendous benefit to me in the early years in business. Brett McKay from Art of Manliness, same sort of thing. And so I have learned from great mentors, and it's been really, really a joy to be able to learn from those guys. And so for me, this is a great way for me to give back and to just put out as much high quality content as I can for those of you who are interested in business and especially online coaching. And so this episode that I did with Zach is really making the argument that online coaching is better than in-person coaching. You've heard some of this before. It comes from a little bit of a different angle, talking to an audience and talking to Zach's audience that maybe hasn't heard this argument before. And so it's just, I think, a good thesis on why I think online coaching should be added to almost every coach's repertoire and what they offer and the advantages that online coaching gives over in-person coaching. Again, not that in-person coaching is bad. I don't think it is at all. I think it can be highly valuable. And I still enjoy doing it at the times that I do it. But I think online coaching really offers you an opportunity to have freedom in your life and to make more money per hour, to charge the client less, all those things. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast I did with Zach Evan-Esh for the Strong Life podcast. he gave me permission to repost this. So shout out to Zach. Thank you so much, not just for allowing us to post this podcast, but also for all the help over the years. I think it's been a very synergistic and mutually beneficial relationship. I learned so much from him in the years when we didn't even know each other, just by reading his articles and buying his DVDs and things. DVDs dates me, right? So how long is it since you bought a DVD? We'll probably never buy one again. But that was the kind of stuff he was putting out, content before there was any such thing as social media. And so grateful for him doing that. Taught me a lot, for sure. So hope you enjoy this podcast. Have a great Thanksgiving week. I'll come back with a new episode next week. So I'll see you next Friday.
What's up, team? This is your boy, Zach Evan-Esh. Good morning. I'm with my boy, Matt Reynolds. Haven't chatted with Matt for a long time, although Matt, really, I was thinking about this last night. I paid Matt for consulting for the gym business. I paid Matt to train me online when I wanted to hook grip deadlift 500 pounds with a bum knee. And I'm excited that Matt's here. We're going to be talking about something that is not just of interest to me, but a lot of coaches, since I've done certification since 07, 08, coaches transitioning out of in-person coaching, running a brick and mortar gym, taking their expertise to online, which Matt is an expert of because he was a gym owner. Now, obviously, a business owner with Barbell Logic, which I have used, as I said, in the past. And just a real savvy, you're a very smart, dialed in, not just strength coach, fitness coach. I hate to say it, Matt, a little bit of a life coach, accidental life
just
coach.
A business guy. I think,
Yep.
you know, it's as you move through your career, you tackle new challenges, you know, and for me, I think in my early days, I've told this story before where I was just a painfully average athlete in high school, but I had a super competitive streak. And so I needed to find something to compete at. And that's actually where I first discovered you, was in the old Elite FTS articles and stuff that you'd write. And so I got into powerlifting and strongman because that was the challenge at that time, you know, and this is like in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so I competed in powerlifting and total elite at four different weight classes in powerlifting, and then turned to strongman and started competing in strongman and won my pro card. Actually, at the same show that Brian Shaw won his, we were the two pros. There were two new pros back in those days, two new American pros every year. And in 06, it was me and Shaw. And so Shaw has gone on to do great things in the strongman world. And I moved more in the business world. And so, yeah, man, in 2008, I opened a gym, strong gym, that grew to be one of the largest privately owned strength gyms in the country. At the time, I was a teacher. And so obviously we have a lot in common. I was the head strength coach at a 5A high school in Missouri, which is the biggest.
Remember. That's
the biggest classification in Missouri. So I know some states have 6A and 7A and whatnot. Missouri is 5A is as big as you get. So it's pretty good sized high school. Did that for 10 years while I was a pro strongman and competing as a pro strongman and running the gym and finished my master's to be a high school principal and thought that was the direction I was going to go. And honestly, by the time I got through my master's, I was like, I don't know that I'm going to stay in the public school industry for the rest of my life, for the next 30 or 35 years or whatever. And so I left in 2012 to run the gym full time. And then I sold the gym in 2015 and started the online coaching business with Barbell Logic in early 2016. So we're 8 years in now. And man, that business has just grown tremendously. You know, we've got a staff of about 100. We're a $40 million business. It's crazy. And so I'd love to have a conversation. You know, I hit you up and I said, man, I'd love to have a conversation about why I think online coaching may actually be better than in-person coaching. And that's probably a little bit clickbaity, because I think in-person coaching is still great. I think that if you've got a great coach and you've got a great atmosphere and you've got a great gym, I mean, I think those things are awesome. But what I'm seeing with a lot of these coaches out there is that they feel like prisoners to the location and the schedule. They can't leave. They can't take vacation. They can't, if they do, they don't get paid. Or the clients. A lot of times the clients, you know, the cost of personal training is expensive. And so the type of clients you have for personal training, they often take vacation, or they often go on trips, or maybe they're business executives and they're in hotel gyms 2 or 3 times a week. And then they train at their house or a local gym the other half of the week. And so And so we just started to see, we had always said early on, we weren't trying to say that online coaching was better than in-person coaching. We felt like if you had a great coach and a great atmosphere and all those things, and I still want to dive into some of those, that online coaching was the next best option. But after doing this for 8 years, I would at least like to have the conversation that I think that online coaching may be better than in-person coaching, at least for a lot of people out there, not for everybody. And the last thing I want to do is come on the show and say, I think you should give up your in-person coaching practice. But if you're one of those coaches that are listening and you're
people might celebrate.
they might, and some probably need to.
Yes.
But if you're a burned out gym owner, you've done this for 10 years, you're like, I can't scale the business. Like I've got plenty of clients, but I can't scale and make more money unless I just take on more clients and work more hours. And so I'm working 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week or 60, you're a Jersey boy. That's like the culture there is like blue collar hard work. I'm a Midwestern guy. It's the same thing. It's, probably a little more farm oriented, but like people's, it's dark. People that are watching this, like it's 6 a.m. here. This is the best work of the day I get. I've been up since 4. I love to do that work. And that's so it's deeply ingrained in my culture to work hard, but I don't think working hard necessarily has to be at odds with working effectively or efficiently or being able to figure out a way to drive up your dollar per hour. And so I think that's the conversation I'd love to have and to just kind of talk through that. I don't have anything to sell to your clients. We'll talk about how we did that at Barbell Logic, or to your listeners. For me, we want to put out all the free content we can because we have 1 billion people in the world. And 7.5 billion of them need to get stronger. Maybe all 8 billion need to get stronger.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're not competing for, I want to make more good coaches help reach more people. That's it. That's all there is to it. And there are far more than enough people to go around all. And what really is the bottleneck are good coaches. There's not a lot of good coaches. And so if the good coaches we can convince to move, like, hey, you've got 12 or 15 or 20 clients in person, and you can move to a hybrid model, maybe not even get out of the in-person model, but you could add another 30 or 40 clients and make $100,000 more per year, which is not, it sounds almost like a multi-level marketing scheme, like a Mary Kay pitch, like you can get the pink Cadillac, but it's the reality is that almost all of our coaches do that at Barbell Logic. They own gyms, they train in person, but they also have a large online coaching group, and they're making, $75,000, $85,000, $105,000 a year, working an hour a day, hour and a half a day online coaching. Like that to me is how you scale your business and be able to reach more people, beyond just your local town. And I think that, for both the clients, it gives them opportunity to connect with some of the best coaches in the world, regardless of where the coaches are. And for the really great coaches in the world, it helps them connect with everybody all over the world, as opposed to their local town and people that live within 15 or 20 minutes of their gym. So,
yeah. And you know what, when you did the intro, the little background is, I came across Matt in the early days of the Barbell Shrug podcast.
Yeah.
I hear the podcast of this guy who was a teacher, grows this massive gym, sells it. And I forgot that you were a high school strength coach as well, which was, not a common job, so to speak, back in the day. And also, Matt, what's interesting is the changes of the times. So you and I kind of coming up in the business and the industry around the same time, the only people who had a garage gym or a basement gym were kind of the early CrossFit era people.
Yep,
otherwise, everybody was going to a gym. And then you and I, like I said to people, I had you do consulting with me on my gym. At the time, I had multiple locations. Then I had my knee and shoulder problem, and I was very limited. And so I did online training with you for 6 months. And then years later, COVID happened. And it's so interesting, just listening to you, I'm thinking to myself, oh, Matt didn't know it, but you were always a step ahead of what was actually happening in the world. Because once COVID hit, that shook up the gym, like the global gym industry. And now look at look at what people are doing in their garage gym. It's like it's a massive business for companies like Rogue and Rep and Sorinex, who are helping people outfit a single car garage, but it's like a $30,000 investment. So really,
for sure.
let's talk about somebody like me. There's a lot of listeners like myself who either are strength coaches in the college sector, or they own a private facility, or what I've noticed is, like, especially my first certification, the underground strength coach certification, a lot of the guys who went through that certification, they closed down their gyms, they left coaching, they left it, but they were actually very good coaches. How could somebody who is thinking of getting out or did get out, has a quote unquote normal job, how would they start doing the online coaching? Where would you start?
Well, I think one of the advantages of online coaching as opposed to in-person coaching in that scenario. So COVID happens, and by the way, we were the largest client of the largest programming software that was out there. Have nothing bad to say about those guys. They were great to work with, but we recognized the limitations in that other third-party and not just that one, but all of the ones. The first thing for us is we wanted to auto collect PRs, metrics, all the PRs, not one rep max PRs, but like if you set a 3 set of 8 or 3 sets of 10 barbell curl PR, we wanted it to auto track that, because it's the kind of stuff that you don't really track as a coach, right? You're tracking your clients 1 rep max, and maybe their 3 rep max and their 5 rep max on a handful of exercises, but it's impossible to really track all of those metrics. And so we started to develop our own software about 4 years ago, with no intention of taking that to the industry. It was just going to be a proprietary software for Barbell Logic. And then we got that figured out. We felt like it was significantly better than anything else out there. We transitioned our coaches over, had lots of stress about what's called change management, right? People, when stuff changes, people freak out and they're like, it's different and I don't like it. And it actually went really smooth for both the clients and the coaches. It worked similar to the other third-party programming softwares and stuff that was out there, but there was a real focus on actual coaching. And one of the things that you and I have talked about before is I am not a fan of what the world considers online coaching, which is really just selling programs. And I've never done that. I've certainly done programs, but even in the old days and where technology was a mess, clients would video their lifts and they would upload them to YouTube and make them private and then send me the link on email. It was very clunky. And then we moved to a forum, and then we moved to this third-party software, and then we developed our own software. And then COVID hits and every gym in the world closes down. And we started to realize, like, we've got this system where our coaches are making, $250, $300 per hour on average, like crazy money per hour. It also costs the client about a third of what personal training costs. So, personal training's $500, $600, $800, depending on where you live, dollars a month. And online coaching is often like in the $200 range. So it's cheaper for the client, but then the coach isn't, when you train clients, most of your time is actually spent between the lifts in the rest periods, and you're talking and you're building relationships and whatnot, which is all still good things. But your hour is given to that client for that hour. And you guys both have to be at the same location and you have to be on the same schedule and all that stuff. And so the advantage, I think, of online coaching for someone who's maybe moved out of that space and they went back to being an accountant or an engineer or whatever they do, is that they can start to add an online coaching to their repertoire and to their work. And they can do it as little as they want. Online coaching, if done well, is extremely efficient. And so you can still work an 8-to-5 job and work an extra hour a day before work, after work, whenever you want to do it. And that's the flexibility of online coaching. And you can make quite a bit more money. And at some point, I think you can actually get to the point that you can build up a clientele base that you could actually step away. If you hate your job, if you're back in this post-COVID world and you wake up every morning, the alarm goes off. I remember this in my public school teaching days. I enjoyed teaching kids, but I hated the hoops and the politics and the stuff. And I can remember the alarm going off and just being like, I would shout every curse word on.
I think
on
people hate their jobs, Matt. Like,
yeah, they hate their jobs.
That's the truth. People want. Listen, I say it all the time. I love the flexibility and the freedom when I was certainly a full-blooded entrepreneur. Like, hey, I'm going to work in the morning, then I'm going to train then I'm going to do some work, but I'm going to take that work to this coffee shop today.
That's right.
There's a lot of beauty behind that. I know what you love to do is you love to wake up very early, have a pot of coffee. You love to do that. And that's something as a dad, actually, that I want my kids to understand. But, I see my daughter, I think, would work for a place, whereas my son, what he's starting to say? I don't want to be part of the Matrix. I'm like, he's watched too many. What's that guy? Andrew Tate.
He's been red pilled.
That's what he's saying. He said that, we did college visits with my daughter and took him, and he's like, I don't need the red pill. And but what's interesting is what's hitting home to me is I know a lot of guys, when they were coming to my certification in the early days, Matt, they were trying to escape that job they hated.
That's right.
Then they didn't really have the business know-how. The name of the software is also Barbell Logic.
No, it's actually Turnkey Coach. And that's really, I think, important again. And I told you, it's the goal here is not to have a commercial for that. But one of the things that we saw is that we know that you've got a lot of great coaches out there, good coaches, great coaches. They're great at coaching, but they don't understand business very well. And they don't really want to. And they want to do what they do best, which is coach. And so we had developed over 8 years, as you know, like I'm a super systems and standard operating procedure. We're a high organization company. We spend a lot of time making sure that, and a lot of that, it necessitates that because I live in Springfield, Missouri in the Ozarks, but my staff is everywhere. So we're not all checking into a headquarters, punching the time clock. We don't clock people's hours. And so we had to be a company that was based on output. How much work could they get done? I don't care if it takes them 15 hours or 50 hours or whatever. It's like, I'm not gonna be big brother looking over your shoulder or clocking your hours. There's a level of output that we have to do. And because of that, we developed really good systems and standard operating procedures for all of the business stuff, right? The payment processing, the customer service, if a client bounces a credit card. And of course, there's multiple reasons for that. Like it's insufficient funds or the credit card expired or there was a security issue on the credit card and they had to get a new one in. And so what we do with Turnkey Coach is it's a fully immersive programming software and complete coaching platform where we do all the back-end business work for the coach, all the customer service, all the payment processing you talked about before we started recording, that, issues with Stripe and like all of a sudden it gets disconnected and you're like, you don't have to worry about that with us. Like everything is set up.
And that's a coach. This is a lot of coaches. That's why they go to work in the college setting, because they want to be on the weight room floor.
That's
Whereas
right.
Dan Kennedy said, once you become the business owner, it becomes more about the marketing of the thing and not the doing of the thing. But a lot of coaches, they love training so much. They want nothing to do with business. So it's interesting to hear how you, a real great business solves problems.
That's right.
Which is what you're doing.
I one of my favorite business books of all time is the E-Myth, and coaches, I think, ultimately want to be a technician in their job. They want to be the professional they want to coach. They just want to coach people. They don't want to manage. They don't want to be the owner. And that's what the E-Myth kind of lays out. In any business, there are owners, managers, and technicians. And in the beginning, you're all three if you're going to do this well. And you've got to learn to have enough time to work on the business, not just in the business, right? This is a common thing that we hear from business guys. But a lot of coaches really just want to work in the business. They want to coach. But what they don't want to do is coach 70 hours a week. They don't want to not be able to take a vacation with their family. If they take a vacation, they don't get paid. And so one of the things that we started to see was, look, if we can talk to these in-person coaches, as one piece of the demographic who are maybe burned out, they're coaching a ton, they're in the gym, and help them transition to a hybrid model, not to like completely turn in the keys to the gym, but maybe move the gym to like a 24-hour, clock or 24-hour check-in keypad. They're there with normal office hours and they coach in person, but then they tell their clients and they sign up, look, a couple times a year, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to Mexico with my family, and I'm going to continue to program for you on this software. And then I'm going to break down your videos via our software has a built-in screen recorder so that you actually screen record yourself, picture in picture. The client sees themselves squatting. They hear your feedback on their squats. They see your face. They see your movements. You
You take your arm, you're like, you got to bend over a little bit more on the squat here. You're forward on your toes. You can draw on the stuff. All that stuff was built in. So what we really did is we started with how do we automate metrics and make that alone was going to be better than all the other third-party softwares. And then, man, my dev team and my COO and product manager, he is incredible. He comes from a lean manufacturing background. And we started looking at, like, how do we do this in the most efficient way possible? How do we make it so that coaching is extremely efficient for the coach with no loss in service for the client? And that is a massive core value for us. We don't want to make it efficient for efficiency's sake and just make the coach a bunch of money per hour and not provide excellent service to the client, because the client will leave. But now, after 8 years of doing this, dude, our churn rate is like 2.5 to 3%. It's always under 3%. That's unheard of low in any industry, let alone the fitness industry. We don't have contracts. So when I say 3%, we lose 3% of our clients per month. And you're talking about thousands of clients. And there's just a handful that leave. And so now, if you do that well, you don't have to focus on replacing 200 clients for us every month, right? It's like, if we replace 25 clients, then we continue to grow. If we add 50, we literally grow because we've replaced everyone that left. And so that was a big piece of it. How could we provide the best customer service to our clients first, just for Barbell Logic? And then how could we make this system available to other people who are trying to move that direction? So I think, one, you've got the burned out coach who's still coaching in the gym, probably, still has PTSD from COVID because they did what they could to try to get through COVID. And now, like, the world's kind of opened back up, but they're like, dude, I can't ever leave. I'm working 60 hours a week. The only way to make more money is to work 70 hours a week. And you're like, listen, there is a better way. You can work 20 hours a week, 25 hours a week in the gym, and transition a lot of your clients to either an online or a hybrid model. So you coach them in person some and online some, and they either go and train at your gym if they live close. But we've also talked to a lot of coaches. They've got people who are driving an hour into their gym because that's the best gym to train at. And those people can train in their garage gym. Just like you said, that garage gym explosion has occurred. Garage gym reviews. I don't know if you know this, but Coop is actually in my town in Springfield. So he's
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's actually headquartered here.
Yeah.
We've had great relationships with them. And of course, I still have I'm grateful to CrossFit as much as I'm not a fan of CrossFit, because it exposed people to barbell-based training, home gyms, garage gyms. Like, you don't have to go to the big box Globo gym and train. And so what we have is we've got a bunch of clients at Barbell Logic who are business executives and soccer moms and dads who have great little garage gyms or basement gyms or, guest bedroom gyms. And they train in those several times a week. They travel and they're in hotel gyms a couple times a week.
Yes.
And like, look, you can't do squats and deadlifts in a hotel gym, but we can still maintain consistency and still get a good workout in. Dumbbells, body weight, Bulgarian split squats, goblet squats, things like that. You can do those things. All of that can come through on a programming software. And then you can video yourself and your coach can break that down. And by the way, we can connect you with a coach that's perfect for you. That it's hard to find a coach that's perfect for you in your little town. Again, I'm speaking in Springfield, Missouri, but think about, there's 100 million people in the United States that live in very rural areas. There are no coaches. There aren't even bad coaches. There are none. And so the internet has created this opportunity to be able to help clients reach expert coaches and help expert coaches expand their potential clientele to the entire world, and not just the US. I mean, we've got some international coaches. We have a ton of international clients. We have a ton. We're coaching soldiers now. I lost my monitor. Sorry. We're coaching soldiers now. We got Air Force contract.
I saw that.
Yeah,
Yes.
these guys, they're training in Tunisia and Algeria, and these soldiers are often, they are very itinerant. They're in San Diego for 2 years, and then they're in Germany for 2 years, and then in Afghanistan for 3 years. And like, as long as they can get good quality online coaching, they can do that anywhere in the world. And so whether that's the business executive that travels to the hotel, or the soldier that's all over the place, or just the client at your gym who is traveling to the gym numerous times per week, and it's hard to connect on the schedule and the location of your coach, you can still, you can do that on Saturday mornings and still coach your clients in person, and then online coach them through the week, and they can train out of their home gyms, and it works great.
Let me ask you a question, Matt, because I remember seeing you post about the Air Force. I guess, was that a government contract?
Yeah. So yeah.
Let's
So we
talk
got that in
about,
January. Yep.
I want to talk about kind of two sides to it, and to make it make sense for the people listening. How does somebody acquire their first individual online client, and then how do they like move towards I'm programming for a team or a
Yeah.
you're training I don't know, like what we call the Air Force, a government
Yeah.
organization.
Business
So
to business, basically going from individual to business or group.
yeah, if you
I
were
think is
to
what you're
give
asking.
like a 2 to 3 minute
Sure.
rundown of business advices, as Arnold
Yeah.
says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think first off in the online coaching, obviously online coaching is a saturated market, but it's also full of, and I think your listeners understand this because I don't think this is who they are. It's rife with Instagram models who they're
Yes.
selling, taking pictures of their butts or abs and posting it on Instagram. And so they're selling, big booty blaster, whatever. That's the thing. Well, that's not really online coaching. And that person's not even really a coach. There's somebody who's probably taking Ozempic and performance enhancing drugs and also just have great genetics and whatever. And so everybody looks at them as like, oh, I'll pay them for a cookie cutter template. Well, that's not online coaching, right? And so for us as experts in the field, I think the first thing you have to do is just make content. Like content is king. We're a service business. We make money on service, which means that content is free. And you've done this for years. Again, like that's how I know who you are, is from reading articles back in the day that you posted in various places online. And so I think that making those high value content, listen, they don't have to be, if you look at Barbell Logic, one of the things I get a little nervous about people look at is like, we have highly produced everything. The podcast is highly produced. The videos are highly produced. We did it backwards. I got lucky, man. We monetized the company, made money, and then we're able to back in that and start to really make content and put out content consistently. And we've done that since 2017. But for most people, like, dude, an iPhone works great. iPhone and one of those Rode, microphones that cost $100 on Amazon. Like the problem with an iPhone is the audio sucks. So you can get great quality video, great quality audio. You post high value content, not highly produced content. You produce high value content and you do that very consistently. And this is actually really tough, I think, for people to do. I see coaches do this all the time. They fire out of the cannon. They burn the candle at both ends. They put out a ton of content. I see the content. I'm like, this is great, high value content. And 6 months later, they burn out because they can't continue to put out that content. Like you've got to keep writing the articles or making the podcasts or doing the videos.
I don't know if people read articles like they once did. Like
I don't think they do.
Yeah, it's more video. Now it's, YouTube shorts.
Yep.
And of course, Instagram. But I think the key is when, people will be like, hey, what's high value? I came across something yesterday. I don't remember where, maybe on Twitter. And it said, market to me your business. And I think you're selling me something. Market to me the answer to my problems. And I think you're trying to help me. And
That's
so
right.
that was a reminder to me of, anytime I have an injury and it's been a while, but let's say my shoulder, my knee, you start going down the rabbit hole looking for a solution. Or when COVID happened, gym owners were looking for cleaning solutions. And that was kind of like, that was an easy sell. But then all kinds of businesses started opening up and revolving around cleaning products. So I think even sometimes I get away from that. Like I create content. So like my recent video was about like living in the squat rack. That's not really solving somebody's problem.
Sure.
But so I had to seeing that Twitter post or X post yesterday, that was a reminder of like, what is the problem you're solving? What have you found is the problem you're solving? Because I think it's a lot of adults in the 40 plus range, correct?
Yeah, I think for us, again, and I don't think this needs to be everybody's MO, but for Barbell Logic, we try to help people experience strength to improve their quality of life, period. And for people who are 35 to 65, that's what they're looking to do. They're typically more of a high income, certainly from a age bracket demographic. They are good at they actually take direction and are able to be coached. They don't push back and fight. They don't get tired of it after 6 months and move on to hot yoga or CrossFit. And so it's a great demographic for us to reach. And so if you look at our content is all focused on that thing. Like, how do we improve quality of life? And that could be from how-to videos. I don't know how to use wrist straps. I don't know how to do an RDL. We have a ton, hundreds of those, right? But also training in a way so that you can be, one of our podcast series right now is called Beast Over Burden. Like, training shouldn't be a burden. If you hate it, it's unsustainable, and again, I've talked about this a lot. I have a lot of respect for guys like Jocko, and it's kind of discipline over motivation. But I really think that if we pull back, there is some combination of discipline plus motivation, plus joy equals this is sustainable. We know that when we white knuckle discipline something, often that's how we have to start, right? When to turn the momentum, you've got momentum of being sedentary or you're eating crap and you're door dashing all day. Like, at some point, you just have to take the initiative to be disciplined enough to get up early in the morning and not do the DoorDash and like whatever the thing is that you're trying to change. But if it's a good thing, and I don't really want to assign morality to it, but if it's a thing that is good for you and will help bring you joy, what I found is that motivation almost always follows that discipline. After a while, you're like, now I'm motivated to get up at 5 a.m. Now I'm motivated to make my food at home and not DoorDash. Now I'm not. If 6 weeks in you still hate making food at home and you'd rather DoorDash, like, it's not going to last. And so at some point, I think it starts with discipline. The purpose of the thing is to bring you joy or improve your quality of life. And what you almost always find is that then the motivation will follow. And once the motivation follows, it turns into habit. Now you have a habit, right? And so there's a continuation piece there that occurs. And so I think that's a big piece. So for us, it's about creating that value for our clients. And then we've seen over the 8 years of being a business, we've seen a ton of our clients who had their lives change for the better for strength. And then they want to help their spouses, train their spouses, train their kids, train their neighbors, the people they go to church with, whatever. So we had to figure out, like, well, how do we bring value to those people? And so we developed an academy to start teaching like up and coming young, people who don't have exercise science degrees, who are business professionals in other fields. They tend to be intelligent people and they understand. And so we've focused on an online learning environment there with the academy where we help teach people and we give them permission basically to coach. Like, hey, you can start coaching. You already know more than the 18-year-old kid at Planet Fitness. So you can start coaching your wife or coach your kids. And, I know there's a lot of pushback there about it's hard to coach your spouse, and it is hard to coach your spouse. But I think that coaching your friends and family is the first place we start. So we started trying to make content with value there. And then it has become, for us, as we've moved further down the business, is like, okay, now let's give people the tools to actually do that. And that's what Turnkey Coach is. It's the tools to actually coach without having to worry about setting up the LLC, getting all the business stuff figured out, payment processing through Stripe, which, by the way, we've used Stripe for 8 years. We've run tens and tens of millions of dollars through there. So we have a great relationship with Stripe. So you get to set up your own Stripe account under our account. Like, we don't touch your money. We don't see your money. But because we have such a great relationship with Stripe, you can get a Stripe account for far less paperwork and far less, you don't have to prove. We're basically saying, like, look, if for some reason this person, stiffs somebody, we'll cover it. And so, like, we're careful. And then Stripe's like, all right, because you guys have done this for 8 years, it's called Stripe Connect. And so you get your own Connect Stripe account. You charge your clients. That money goes directly into your account, not ours. We don't see the money. We don't make interest off your money or anything like that. Auto deposits in the account. And so we try to give people the tools. Again, we do the customer service. We send people birthday cards and anniversary cards. And, if somebody has a baby or somebody loses their mom, we send we send a card to them, like that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that we do so that you can do what you do best, which is coach. And so all of that comes back to the content that we've made from the very beginning. And really what Barbell Logic was based on in the beginning was this podcast that walked people through this systematic, logical progression of strength. And so we started with the simplest of questions, like, why strength? Like, there's all this stuff you could do. You could be strong, you could be agile, you could have endurance, balance, all the stuff that CrossFit kind of talks about, those 10 big things. We're like, here's why we focus on strength first, not strength only, not strength at all costs. We're not really gallon of milk a day sort of people. Again, it's like if you're a 155-pound kid, maybe. But for the most part, it's like that's not who our demographic is. And so here's why we focus on strength. Here are the exercises that get me strong. Here are how to perform those exercises. Here's the programming that gets me strong. It's very simple, hard, effective.
People like simple. People
simple
love
works. Well, but
it works.
People also sometimes love, and this is the other piece of this, is I think our demographic loves simple.
Yes.
But I think 22-year-olds love complicated.
You're right.
I think it's seductive, man. I think complexity is like seductive to them. They're like, I want to train like an advanced athlete. And you're like, bro, if you could add 5 pounds to the bar every day for the next 6 months, why would you do anything different? So when people first sign up for us, it's like, listen, you're not paying for complicated programming. You're paying for the technique coaching, which is why I think often online coaching must contain technique coaching and not just be a program. You're gonna buy a program for me that's a simple linear progression. Like, dude, you can figure it out in 4 workouts, right? And so I think that's who we are.
Yeah, what you said about the younger coaches or younger people, and that's man, I don't even know how to phrase this, but that's still an issue that's a major issue in the strength and conditioning world, where a sport coach will say to me, hey, I saw, Texas does these speed workouts before their football game. And it's like, yeah, but here's our problem. We have kids that can't do 1 pull-up. We have kids that don't show up. So we need to not worry about what college guys are doing. And by the way,
who are the freakiest of the freaks?
Yeah, only 6 or 7% of our kids are going to play in college. And then 50% of them will not make it through their first season. So you and I being, quote unquote, being around the block, like right now, my online clients, I do a VIP coaching program. It's basically, it's like $500 a month, but I don't use software. So this is a great conversation for me to have with you selfishly, because it's a little bit like, it's not as smooth as I want it to be, but their VIP access to me is you could text me and video message me your stuff. But how do you scale that? You really can't. I could get to a certain number before it explodes. And so what we didn't touch on, I don't want to jump the gun. We didn't touch on
moving into
the larger group
so
online coaching.
So I think that what you do is you start with the one-on-one. Because the one-on-one coaching, and I mean online, right? So certainly in person as well, but like online is a place where you get your flow figured out, right? You get the systems figured out. You get your programming figured out. You learn how to get efficient as a coach. Again, people, when they start on Turnkey Coach, and so we were making on average about $50 an hour on the True Coach and Train Heroic and all these, you've got ones like, and I think people should look at those. But for us, once we develop that system of auto collecting metrics, which one saves the coach clients or saves the coach time, because they don't have to auto collect those things. And by the way, it gives you a little dopamine hit for the client. Every time the client hits a PR, they're like, oh, you just hit a chin up PR. And you might have not known that, right? So that's important. You develop this system and a flow state of how to coach your one-on-one clients. And you develop those systems and you develop those standard operating procedures, and you get more efficient, and you watch your dollar per hour go from like $100 per hour to $300 per hour. And then you're ready to take the step into trying to coach teams or businesses, HR groups, government, because now you know how to do that at scale. You can't do this if you only have 3 clients. There's no way to go from 3 online coaching clients to try to sell, a big business. I'm going to go to Sony and I'm going to talk to their HR department, and we want to do the health and wellness for Sony. Like, well, who are you? Well, like, I have 3 coaching clients. It's one, you couldn't do it. It would kill you, because you can't take on 2,000 clients. And I don't know how many businesses are out there that could do that anyway. Now, could you take on a field hockey team or, a football team or a softball team that's got 25? Maybe. But I think you start simple, one at a time. You figure out that system, you figure out that flow. So to put it in perspective, I have 40 online coaching clients right now. And I've actually increased what I have. And remember, I'm a CEO of a $40 million business. Most of my time is spent doing that. But I think it's important that I continue to coach. All my C-suite still coaches, right? Like all the upper executives, they're coaches. That's important because 1, I want to keep my coaching eye sharp. 2, I want to have access and I want to see what's going on in the software. Not only am I a coach on the software, I'm a client on the software. I use it from the client side on my phone. So I use the software on my computer as a coach, and then I use it on my phone as a client. I go in and track my workouts and upload my videos to my coach, and I get to see all of those things. 40 clients I have, I would make about $95,000 a year if I were a 1099 coach at Barbell Logic. Takes me about 50 minutes to 60 minutes a day.
Well, let me.
So that's $95,000 a year to work an hour a day. And by the way, that's not, I want to be clear, that is not me selling Barbell Logic. That is actually at Barbell Logic, we take more money from our clients than we would take from people who figure out how to do this on their own and pay out less, right? And so there's like
people hearing that, you're going to get people reaching out to you. So I'll make sure also in the audio and the video, there's going to be links to Barbell Logic and Turnkey Coach where they could, and you tell me what links to put in there.
Yeah, for sure.
You were mentioning, I just back up like 1 minute on that. I'm taking notes here. You were mentioning just some standard operating procedures for like your first few online clients. And by the way, when you said start training kind of family members or people, you know, that's the advice I'm giving to coaches when they're like, hey, you know, I've got this knowledge and I'm going to open this gym, but I don't have clients. I'm like, no. Chill out. Why don't you start training family members, or you have some friends who have, you know, 2 or 3 kids that are in middle school sports, train them out of a garage, and then prove to me that you could get 20 people to train out of your garage. Then we could talk about renting space and all that stuff.
Because it's low risk, high reward for those people, right? It's low risk for you. You're not going to get some business loan at the bank. And I don't know that I think you should ever do that, but like a
lot of people do that.
I know. And then
have you ever taken a loan out, Matt, for any of this?
No, I mean, we've got a business line of credit at this point, but now we have investors at this point. So we've raised about $6 million over the course of the life of the business. And so, and again, part of that for us is that our business is wired a little different. It's not based on the cult of personality of me. You know this. I've always tried to build a business to have a lot of value for the business itself. The business is built on the quality of service and the quality of coaching that our coaches provide. And so I'm never going to be like an Alex Hormozy guy, who I love. Like, I love watching Hormozy stuff. The dude's great. But the problem is that if Barbell Logic is based on Matt Reynolds' cult of personality and I die in a car accident, the business is worth nothing. Or if I just want to sell the business a few years down the road, they're like, well, you got to stay because you're the face of the business. I don't want to be the face of the business. I want the business to be based on the quality of the coaching.
You told me this long ago. And what's interesting is, like, if I sold the underground strength gym, all those kids would stay because I only go there once a week. So if the person wanted to buy the business, I would say my coaches, keep the coaches on board.
That's right.
And that's what's going to get, you know.
And typically that's part of a sell, you know, part of the negotiation factor. It's like, look, your employees are going to sign a contract that says, and a lot of times those employees, again, as a company gets big like ours does, our employees have stock options and whatnot. So, okay, in order to cash out their stock, if they're going to cash out their stock, they're going to sign a contract that says they're going to stay for the next year and coach for a year. And then they can make a decision moving forward if they, you know, and often it would be the same thing. They would keep me on as CEO for some period of time to train up a new CEO. So that's kind of like what happens as the business gets big. But it's, you know, that systems and standard operating procedures for these coaches is just about figuring out where there are places where you are distracted and you're not getting efficient work done. And so, you know, as a coach, one, we want to be extremely efficacious, which I realize is a big word, but like we want to be able to move people towards the goal, right? If some client comes to you and says, I want to lose weight, or I want to get stronger, you better be able to do that, right? If some client comes to us, and we have a lot of clients like this, I want to lose weight, I want to lose inches off my waist, I want my health metrics to get better, I want my blood pressure to go down, you know, and of course we can't guarantee that we, you know, all this stuff, and we just focus on making their squat stronger, we've missed the boat. It's not efficacious, right? And so with our clients, we realize that the real value in building these systems is that you're building trust and relationship with your clients via, one, they trust that you have the ability, and you actually do have the ability to do what you can, that you can move them towards the goal as an expert coach, as a quality coach. Two, you have the integrity to do what you say you're going to do. So will you continue to provide programming at the right time, give them feedback? We provide feedback within 24 hours every single time. Video feedback, like that kind of stuff. It's the kind of stuff that separates you in the field. And then 3, can you provide some level of authentic, I wish there was a better word for this. We call it benevolence. Like, do your clients know you actually care about them?
Oh,
If you can show that you have the ability, you can, the integrity, you will, and the benevolence, you care, they will build trust with you, and your relationship will build even in the online sphere, which I think is much harder to do than an in-person coaching. The one thing I do want to be clear, the one drawback, the biggest drawback of online coaching versus in-person is the lack of atmosphere. If you got a great gym, underground strength gym is this great gym of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Lots of people need that and they want to go to that, right? And so that's where I think a hybrid model can often work well. But I actually think that you can build a lot. If you do it well, you can build an excellent relationship and build trust with your clients. And then the other thing we saw with online coaching, my best in-person clients when I owned Strong Gym still missed a lot because they travel. They go on a cruise, they go on vacation. They're business guys that go, and they're in hotels and they didn't train during those times. With online coaching, they can train during all those times, right? They can train on vacation. They can train. So it works.
In your mid-30s, once you get to maybe your mid-30s, maybe I'm wrong, but I think, let's see, my daughter's 17. I'm almost 48. So I was like 31. Once you get that busy family life going, I don't really give a shit to go to another gym. I would love my own home gym. And I think COVID times helped raise the value of the value that people get from online interaction, whether it's coaching or not, like anything, meaning they got so used to being on Zoom that, companies in New York City stopped sending, thousands and tens of thousands of employees to the city because they realized, hey, we're actually getting more work done. John Smith and Susie Smith are not on the train an hour each way.
That's right.
Commuting. They're getting work done. But then, my buddy Joe DeSena said, listen, when you're in the office with people, nobody's going to do their laundry and taking their, kid to the dentist. But I think for your target market, and I honestly think that's the better target. I don't want to target people in their 20s. When I'm online coaching, it's all adults. And
by the way, the clients that you coach that are kids, who is actually your client?
I was just going to say this. A father reached out to me to train his son.
That's right.
After ACL repair. So I'm not communicating directly with the son, the father.
Kid. And he's the one that puts the credit card on file, right?
Well, how do they reach out to me? What did Matt say earlier? Content, whether it's the podcast, the videos. And it's interesting. I've said this a lot, but you never know who's listening and when they're listening. It takes time for people to build trust in you, or it takes a specific moment, a painful moment in their life to come across one of your key pieces of content where they're like, oh, now I need this guy. Like, for example, Donnie Thompson puts out, or he used to do on YouTube, a lot of videos for shoulder health, hips, back. And I'm always sharing those videos with my coaches, but I know, like, where did I come across that stuff? Well, I had started having shoulder problems.
Jacked up shoulder, jacked up back, jacked up knee, right? That's what you do.
You go down the rabbit hole that addresses people's pain.
So by the way, it comes back to what we started talking about with the content. Like, again, when people hire you as a coach, think of how many, we've done this for 3 decades about at this point, you and me, right? How many people hire you when they're in a great place? Almost none.
There's got to be, I've heard it for decades. Listen, dads will call me and be like, I can't sit in the stands anymore and watch my son sit the bench, or I can't be in the stands anymore and my daughter doesn't get enough playing time. She's too slow. Or every time my son loses, there's a kid wearing an underground strength shirt. Like, what?
Right. Or their parents are like, I can't bend over and I can't breathe when I tie my shoes. I can't. My dad had a heart attack last week and I'm nervous about it, right? Or the lady, I put on the dress that I always look nails in and I saw myself and I was embarrassed, right? And so
I can't throw the football to my son.
Right. They're coming to you in a vulnerable, emotional state. And one of the other things you must do with your content and your personality is create a way to be where people can approach you. You've got to be approachable so that it tears down the wall. The first thing we're trying to do as a coach is tear down the walls of like, I need to know if my clients are arguing with their wife at night, if their kid was up all night throwing up and they didn't sleep. Like, I can make adjustments to your workout because, again, I care about you. And so those things are really important. So you're meeting the need, you're fixing their problem, you're addressing their problem, and that's how they find you.
There's a former Navy SEAL on YouTube, and of course those accolades draw people in. We all know that. And man, I forget his name, but it's the 3 of 7 project, and he does these videos like from the car, and just like, but he. What I'm noticing is he gets people to believe in themselves, and people love him for it. And then he's like, "Hey, man, you like the show?" He's like, "Buy a T-shirt, man. Buy a hat." And I could only imagine he's selling hundreds of hats and T-shirts
solving problems.
And you want to know what a big problem men have, Matt? I know you've seen this, which I believe strength. I don't want to say it solves. I believe it does solve the problem. There's a lot of middle-aged men who still have the insecurity of a 15-year-old boy. They don't have confidence, and it's that to me is like I don't know if that's like a pain point, but I've trained adult men who are late 30s, early 40s, and it's like, whoa, I feel like I'm talking to a 15-year-old here who's still scared of the world. And what that tells me is, let me get this guy stronger, let me build muscle.
Yeah, then watch what happens. He comes out of his shell. He doesn't become arrogant, right? And this is, I think, the difference between us and a lot of times I don't want to on bodybuilders, but people who are just there to like have a beauty pageant with other dudes instead of stand up on stage is not really what we do. So I think a lot of times people see bodybuilders or huge jacked guys and like, God, they're arrogant. Like, no, we're not talking about building that. We're talking about building self-confidence, a healthy level of self-confidence to solve these problems, right? Like, dude, how many of these same guys are business executives that have imposter syndrome?
Yes.
They're going to their job. They're a COO. They're an accountant. And like, dude, I don't know that I'm qualified for this job. And then they get strong and they're like, you know what? I'm gonna get better at my job. I'm gonna learn what I can, And for me, again, the challenge for me was competitive lifting first. It was tackling the challenge of becoming a competitive powerlifter and strongman, and then as coach. And I don't have any of those things totally figured out, but I've coached 40,000 hours. And so like I feel confident in my coaching ability. And over the last several years, it's been business owner and CEO. Like that's the challenge for me. I still love to coach. I still love to train. These are things that are part of my life and will always will be. But the challenge for me, so it's finding often that time, that thing that is the challenge that you want to overcome. And what's wild about strength training is how much it carries over to all those things. It doesn't just make you physically better and improve your life. It makes you mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually often better. Like those things that matter
because
all improve.
I think you and I are where we are thanks to strength training. It was like the very thing that propelled us. So we're going to close it down soon. We didn't really tackle like the group training. But what hit me is, you mentioned like hitting a PR. I was like, man, there's even online powerlifting meets, online weightlifting meets.
Yeah, we love those. We do them all the time.
I know. You see other podcasts also doing it. And it just, the reason why I bring it up is because it was another reminder of how people are like, yeah, I don't give a shit if some people like just doing their thing in their house and don't want to go to the meet all day. To me, that's very hard to do with kids in sports. If you're like, Zach, come do this thing for a whole weekend. I'm like, damn, who's taking my daughter to the tennis tournament while my son has a baseball tournament in another state? And so I often say convenience and excellence are rarely found on the same road. But in this case, we favor convenience. And so my online clients are pretty cool. It's pretty interesting, like the things that they do for work. And then these little hey, I don't have this equipment at this time because,
That's right.
this
You make
got packed
adjustments.
up. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's talk about, I've sent workouts to teams, but I haven't really per se locked down a team. How
Yep.
would, forget to say you're training a team is an understatement with the Air Force. So
Yeah, we got this huge group of EOD guys, right? So explosive ordnance disposal. These are the crazy bastards who disarm bombs. I mean, these people are crazy, but awesome, badasses. Thank you for your service, for real, right? Every time I'm there, I go and meet these guys at their flight at the EOD building. Every one of those has a hallway of memorials of like all the people they've lost, and dude, they're 21-year-old kids. And I just try to stand there for a minute. And I don't want to get choked up. It's like, listen, we coach people and improve their quality of life. But yet when we're coaching these Air Force guys, these EOD guys, it's like the standard is raised a little bit because you're like, listen, this is not just about improving the quality of life of an executive. This is improving the quality of life and performance of people who protect us on a daily basis. And so how do we coach hundreds of those people? Well, we've got a good team of coaches. So again, I think it's hard to do with one person. We don't have a huge team of coaches. We have maybe 6 or 7 of our coaches that coach these guys. We've trained them specifically. We put them through an academy specifically to focus on what we call tactical athletes, and which mostly is just soldiers at this point. But we teach them how to coach. We lay out some basic templates of here's how we would basically lay out their programming, and then be very clear about, we don't want cookie cutter stuff. Don't copy and paste this in. If you copy and paste, make changes for the individual, because some of these guys want to be more athletic and do more kind of CrossFit-y stuff that's like low impact and low skill. Like they're already doing crazy stuff. They're putting on 60-pound rucks and they're rucking and their knees are all shot. So like, if you're going to do, energy systems training, you don't want to beat them up. You've got to do stuff that doesn't beat them up. So it's Prowler and it's Echo Bike and it's the rower and it's stuff like that. And, body weight stuff and accessories. And so we just have a good system for how to train those guys and move them from, novice training to intermediate training to more, and that novice training is very general, and that as they get more advanced, it becomes more specific to their goals. And so like we have a system of strength standards that we're like, look, all of you should be able to hit this, X body weight on squat, bench press, and deadlift. And when you hit that, we're going to move you more towards specific goals for you. If you want to do hypertrophy, we'll focus more on hypertrophy. If you want to do more athletic stuff, if you need to improve your PFA score, which is a big piece of that, we'll do that. A big reason the government hired us in the first place is to reduce injuries. And so, a reduction of injuries to have more combat ready guys. And then here's what you do. In the beginning, when you coach these groups, you start with like pure encouragement, dude. It's pure encouragement. It's just like it's not artificial, like it's authentic, but you're trying to encourage them to just buy in and do the thing. You're building consistency, right? And as time goes on, I love the competitive atmosphere of this stuff. And so another thing we have at Turnkey Coaches, we have a leaderboard that you can parse out for everybody that's on Turnkey Coach, and then you can see how you stack up against the world, for the whole world, your age group, your body weight, but also we can divide that up by EOD flights. They can see how they stack up on their EOD flight, and they can see how their EOD flight compares to other EOD flights, which is really cool. Now, what we do, because we follow like strict HIPAA guidelines and all that stuff, is we automatically anonymize people on the leaderboard. So they're like client number 351. And then they can click a button that says, I want my name to be on here. Well, what do you think the top 50 guys do? They all turn their names on because they want people to know, like, this is who, I'm in the top 10 at, Turnkey Coach or Barbell Logic. And so I think you start with encouragement when you coach these groups, and then you slowly start to build in the competitive atmosphere. And that entire time you're building a core value of like, look, this competitive atmosphere is still there for encourage each other. Don't you kind of know each guy or each person. Obviously we train ladies as well in this system, but some people handle that competition better and some less. And you figure out where to push and where, sometimes I'll say, like, sometimes I have guys that I say, listen, you're doing great. You just hit the same deadlift my wife hit a couple years ago. And it's, you're kind of busting their balls a little bit. And there's other guys that like you would never say that because they would just like be dejected and they would quit. And so that's one of your jobs as a coach, man. We are, for lack of a better term, we are psychiatrists on some level with our clients. And that's why you have to build a relationship with your clients, because you have to know what are the right buttons to push. Who needs the encouragement? Who needs a little bit of butt kicking, right? Who needs a little bit of getting their ass chewed? Who needs some competition? Who needs to not have that and kind of shield them from it? That's our job as coach. And so as you start to, but what you'll see is you build this system, you build the efficiency, you kind of know the general direction you're going to take most of these teams or groups, and then you slowly start to become more specific, add in the competition, let them compete with each other, high-fiving each other on competition, not, go F yourself competition. Like it's not that. It's because you're trying to build team cohesiveness. I mean, especially for a guy like you that trains a lot of athletes, competition is that's what they're doing.
What you're saying is a missing link at my school. And I had this conversation with many coaches the past few weeks, because we don't have a record board and da-da-da. And a friend said to me, he's like, listen, athletes may not like to train. He's like, but they like to compete.
Yep.
And he's like, I've seen schools put like almost like street signs and it'll say 315 bench, Matt Reynolds, John Smith, Jake, da-da-da. But, I want my name up there. Well, but if that sign is not up, they don't know. So they said, listen, you got to gamify stuff. I thought it was really interesting that you had the option to be anonymous.
Right.
And so there's also like a speed program out there. Tony Holler in Chicago, he runs a program called Feed the Cats. And he says 3 things: record, rank, publish. He goes, so you see anybody who's in his program, they're recording like flying 10, flying 20, and then they share it on Instagram. What kid doesn't want to be shown in the top 10 of the 40-yard dash or the 100-meter run? So what you're doing,
what does that add? It adds a tremendous amount of accountability to your athletes, to your clients, because, bro, like now I've done the same thing. I've lost 60 pounds this year. And it's been
I'm looking at you. I'm like, Matt is looking svelte.
Thanks. It's been a long process. But, part of that is like I made some vulnerable posts on social media to create some accountability there. I wanted to be held accountable. I've done since my competitive years, I've done the whole like go up to 280, come down to 260, 240, to go up to 300. I didn't want to dude, I'm in my mid 40s. I'm a CEO. It's time to I don't need to weigh 300 pounds anymore. I'm not a competitive professional strongman. And so you, by posting that up there's some accountability. And it's the same thing with online coaching. If you're actually not just selling programs, but you're actually breaking down technique and talking to your clients via screen recording on a daily basis or 3-4 times a week, however often they're training, then that provides that accountability. They know, dude, when they hit record, I've trained Brett McKay from Art of Manliness for 10 years at this point. Dude, that guy doesn't need coaching from me. He knows that guy I could hire him as a coach tomorrow. He's got a great coaching eye. He knows how to program. His form is perfect, yet he stays. Why? Because he knows when he hits record on the phone, on the last set of squats, coach is going to watch it. And it raises the standard, and it raises the accountability, and it raises the compliance and the consistency of your clients. They don't miss, if you just sell programs, your client could just lie to you and say they did it. But for us, like you posting a video, I can see if you did this thing. And that stuff matters for sure.
100%. So this, we could chat all day. You're my bro. Let's shout out some links for people to start getting into the world of barbell logic, turnkey coaching, and maybe what I'm sure somebody's going to kind of want to jump the gun and be like, I want to apply to be on your team, and I'm quitting my job.
No, don't do that. So, and again, what's nice about that is that you don't have to. You can still work a 40-hour week and add 1 hour a day and make a bunch of money as an online coach. So this is, again, one of the things I always try to do with calls to action is I don't want to sell something, right? If people know me, great. And if some of those people go through it fast and they decide to buy something, that's great. But what I want to do is give them high value content. And so they can go to turnkey.coach/5x, turnkey.coach/5x. And we are about to come out with in the next week or two, I think by Black Friday at the latest, we've got a great online course that's 100% free. There's no catch. There's no questions asked. We're not even going to take you don't even have to put in an email address or anything. Like, it's not about that. For us, it is just walking through. It's about 10 videos, I think, that are all pretty short, 5 minutes or less. And there's some great reference material that's attached. It's 100% free that you can use and go, here's how I 5X my dollars per hour in the online coaching sphere. Here's how I do this well. Here's how I develop these systems. All the stuff we talked about today, it dives into the actual details of that, gets into the trenches, and teaches people how to do that. So it's a completely free course. And here's the thing. I just also want to be clear. The reason we make that content for coaches, the reason we make our content for clients, is we know a percentage of those people that consume that content will drive down the funnel and eventually become paying clients or paying coaches. That's fine. I'm not going to worry about that piece. My piece is, how do I provide as much value with this free content as possible? Because we're not a content company. We're a service company. Give people value. And then there will be a percentage of those people that see us as experts in the field, whether as coaches, clients are looking at that, or as other coaches. And they're like, man, Barbell Logic's really figured out this efficiency game. Their coaches make a ton of money. I want to move that direction as well. Cool. Here's a course that you can learn exactly how to do that. And then if you decide to be a paying client down the road, that's fine. Right. So for me, I think we're in a position. It's like, I don't have to sell. Like, I'm not going to send somebody to like, hey, here's where you go sign up and pay us money. Like, do your research, right? Look at our YouTube channel, listen to our podcast. By the way, the other kind of shameless plug I'll give is on Fridays over the past couple months. I'm doing what's called a coaching success series on our podcast. They're pretty short, like 20 minutes long, monologue podcast. And it's all the lessons I've learned in business. Dude, I remember the DVD you and Joe came out with years ago. Dude, I bought that for
That's
whatever,
right.
$200 or whatever, like 15 years ago.
Strength.
That's right. And like that, I invested in my education there. This is great because there's no investment. Like, it's free for us. Like, we've been in a position now that we've been blessed and we can make this stuff. And of course, there's a tremendous amount of cost and production value to do it. But we have this attitude of abundance. If I can get more expert coaches, one, more expert coaches made, and two, more of the expert coaches that are out there to not just coach 10 or 12 or 15 people, but coach 60 people, 10 or 12 in person and another 50 online. Dude, we can change the world for the better. Like, I used to have a podcast partner. He's like, if everybody in the world deadlifted, I think we would have world peace.
Oh,
right. And maybe that's over. Maybe that's
no. I remember you
saying
guys.
It, but
I remember you guys saying that.
It's a big
and listen,
deal.
Matt, I also think like a lot of people to hear, 50 clients. I don't know. Well, that's, again, I'm going to go back to, and I know we said we're not plugging anything, but what I've learned through coaching coaches is a lot of them, they're not good at business. You give them business stuff. They don't want to learn it. Okay. Yeah. Then you should probably go under the Barbell Logic Turnkey Coach umbrella, learn to be a great coach, and let them feed you the clients.
But, by the way,
you can coach.
That's right. For the highest tier that we sell for turnkey coaches, $5 a client. Right. So it's not like, if you coach at Barbell Logic, we take about $90 per client because we do everything. For turnkey coach, it's $5 a client, and it will 5X your dollar per hour. And so that's, and by the way, the first month is always 100% free. We always do that. And I would say we didn't get into this as a technique. I think you have to, as a coach, remove as much friction as possible for clients to sign up and utilize your service. If your service is great and you believe in it, give them a taste for free. Like, it's fine. Like, every coach that comes on and uses Turnkey Coach gets their first month 100% free. And then we have a CX team that helps walk you through and help transition you and onboard you and teach you the software. And you know, when you first, that's, and so that by a month in, they're like, okay, I love this. Or they don't, and they go do something else. And there's no risk because they didn't have to pay anything. And so that's, I think, the advantage that we have at the size that we are at this point.
Yeah, I love it. Because really, I have found, I'm in my office, I'm surrounded by training books, lots of business books. But, you mentioned buying that, we called it The Lost Secrets of Strength. It was a seminar that we recorded. But long story short, like, I remember being in like monthly newsletters from Dan Kennedy. It was like $700 a month, $800 a month. I was getting a newsletter every 2 weeks, audio CD. I invested in my business. I thought that was normal. What I'm learning from coaches is they can't stand business, and they're like, you know what? I'm not even going to coach because I hate doing all this business shit.
Yep.
And so somebody like you is doing, to me, that's awesome, because there are great coaches who are just refusing to learn business, who would be great. You're a great employee, but you're kind of a little bit self-employed. You just need somebody that's kind of managing that thing for you.
Turnkey, and that's really what the purpose of this is. It's not. It's you know. I know in the beginning people are going to compare us to the other programming softwares out there, but the reality is all the other programming softwares are programming softwares. This is a complete turnkey business model. Yes, it's programming software, but we also teach you how to break down client videos. Again, we handle all the payment processing. Like, we make it super easy so you can do what you do best, which is coach. And so, and my last pitch will be this, is to you specifically. You are the perfect coach for a thing like this because you've got a big name, you've got a good following, you've built a ton of content over the years, you know how to coach, know how to online coach. Dude, if I can take your amount of time you're spending online coaching now and cut it by 80%, then either A, you spend a lot less time online coaching and making the same money, or B, you get to double, triple, quadruple your number of clients for the same amount of time. And like, you're perfect for this because you've got a reach already. You could post and you could get 50 or 100 people sign up in 2 days. Right now, you test it out. I want you to test it out. But like, you're perfect for this because it's just going to make all that system more efficient for you.
I'm going to, of course, we'll chat after this, but
Sure.
It's interesting. I'm watching some people on, the algorithm's interesting because as we've been talking, I'm like, how do I not come across Matt's videos anymore? Why doesn't the stupid algorithm feed me his stuff? But I'm watching people who had gyms, closing it down during COVID. They're still sharing on Facebook training tips. And it's like, hey, your Facebook friends will jump at
perfect transition. That's
they trust you already, or at least there's a good amount of trust. And so I think it's cool. So I'm going to link that up.
Turnkey.coach/5X. Yep. Yes, sir.
5X. That's all you want to shout out?
Yeah, man. Just go to that because I think that walks you through how to do this and do it well. And then if you decide to move forward with the coaching piece, you can do it. Like, there's no reason to, I don't need to sell anything. So awesome, dude. Thanks for giving me the time to have this conversation. I think it's a great discussion. Actually, I get to go on Coach Mike Boyle on his this afternoon and have the same conversation. And then same thing, Coach Boyle was like, dude, I do everything in person. And my coaches are doing this and they're all burned out because they're coaching in person. So I'm like, dude, it doesn't have to be that way. There's a better way. So, we've got a webinar this afternoon we're going to do with his team.
That's very cool.
I just want to have the conversation, right? And if you decide don't use us, but like, I think just having that conversation, maybe use another third-party software that's not ours, but like, I think getting people out of the mindset of, I have to just coach in person. I can't scale this. I'm working 40, 50, 60 hours a week to make more money. I got to go 70 hours a week. There is a better way. You don't have to keep coaching more people in person at the same location on the schedule. You can have freedom from that. Go on vacation to Mexico with your family and get paid to continue to coach. That is that's why we all became business owners. If you train
adults, I wouldn't be shocked with some adults who are like, you know what? I live in town. Your gym's in town. I think I just want to come once a week and I want to do this other stuff in my basement twice a week.
That's exactly right.
I believe there would be a lot of people who they would crush. Especially, I think of it as a lot of ways. Women, I know here we said we're stuck. Women would be like, you know what? I'm just going to train in my pajamas. One guy that I trained, he just wears his underwear and a tank top. He's like, that's uncomfortable for you. So you can't do that at the local CrossFit or whatever.
It's like Pachenko, right?
That's right.
So like the old Russians squatting in their whitey tighties.
He comes home very late at night because of his business. And listen, convenience, boom, boom, bang it out. It's cool. So this is a conversation to be continued.
Sure.
And that's it. Matt, you're the man.
Awesome.
Everybody listening, Strong Life Podcast, make sure you leave a 5-star review. That's like our virtual bro handshake. And I always say this is the podcast is free for you, but it's not free for us. So we just hope that you maybe share it with a friend, leave a 5-star review, help spread the word. And that's it. Matt, hang tight while I shut it down so we can have a proper goodbye. Talk to everybody next time.